Hey everyone, and welcome to the author interview series. And today I have with us Peter Bregman, who is the CEO of Bregman Partners, Inc., a company that strengthens leadership in people and in organizations, the host of the Bregman Leadership Podcast, and the author of two books, 4 Seconds and 18 Minutes. So thank you, Peter, for being here today. And I'm pretty happy, and the audience, I'm pretty sure they're happy that you're here as well.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. And actually, I have a little known book that it's actually 4 Seconds was my third book. So I have a little known book called Point B, A Short Guide to Leading a Big Change. That was my very first book around organizational change. So I thought I'd throw that in there.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so
No,
you have
no
three
worries.
books.
Three
Yeah.
books.
Okay, so sorry, my mistake. You have three
No, no
books.
worries at all. It's actually, I think not a lot of people know about that first book.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check out that book as well. I've read both the other two, and they were just phenomenal books.
Oh, thank
Your
you.
books are just filled with great tips, ideas, strategies on how to become more, I guess, effective or more productive, effective in the workplace, at home,
Right.
productive, and
Thank
so
you.
yeah, and so just to start it off, your books are just filled with these great ideas. Now, whereabouts do you get these ideas, or how do they come about?
I get them from everywhere and actually from very, very mundane places. So my kids do something or I think it's just like I'm curious. So I think
Mm,
curiosity is this incredibly useful characteristic, skill, talent, developable completely, which is like, can we be curious? It's one of the reasons I'm actually working on my fourth book now on emotional courage, and one of the things I talk about in that book is why I don't like personality assessments. And I don't like personality assessments because they give an answer to something that should mostly be a question, I think. And that,
mm,
as we interact with human beings, we should be curious about them. We shouldn't figure them out. We should sort of constantly be in a space of I don't know. And I think I'm naturally in that space. I think I'm sort of, I like being curious about things. And so that when you're curious, I think you just start making connections and like I wonder if, right? I wonder if
mm.
is a great sentence. There's most innovation and creativity follows the few words that say I wonder if. And, tremendous numbers of ideas come from that place.
Have you always been curious?
I think so. I mean, if you ask my parents, they would say it was probably an incredibly annoying characteristic. If you ask my, two older brothers, I have two brothers, we're each a year apart, and they would probably also say it's sort of an annoying characteristic. But yeah, I think, the world is a very interesting place, and I think it's interesting because we look for this in leaders, and when we develop leaders and we work with leaders, we work for this somewhat odd combination of courage or confidence and humility. Right?
Mm,
It's hard to be confident and also have humility. People who are confident oftentimes tip over to arrogance, and people who have a lot of humility often, you know, don't necessarily believe in themselves. And the combination of those two is really, really powerful. To be confident in yourself and to still live from a place of not knowing
mm,
is very, very powerful for leadership. And so I think, I've always been relatively comfortable with not knowing things. And even though I have the urge to know and to be the expert and to figure stuff out, and it's a natural urge that we all have. But I think desire my desire to know things is stronger than my confidence that I actually know things. And it's that gap that leads to both curiosity and learning and I think a sort of fresh view of the world.
I love it. I love it. So just being curious all the time, just kind of your personality, just being, you're always questioning what you see around you, or what is it that is happening around the world.
Yeah, and I think it's completely developable. Like it doesn't have to be something you have as a kid.
Mm,
And I also think it's not questioning from a critical eye. It's questioning from a curious eye, right? It's not sort of saying, I'm not sure that's going to work, right? That's sort of a
Mm-hmm.
pessimistic not knowing. Like a view that if you don't know something, then it probably won't work. And the curiosity I'm talking about comes from more of an optimistic not knowing. That would be interesting. Let's try it.
Mm.
And I think that, that a lot of innovation comes from the optimistic curiosity.
I love it. Optimistic curiosity. That's great. So in your book, you talk about a number of ideas and strategies on how people can become more, I guess, effective in their workplace or at home, or I guess somewhat more just efficient. So, what of the list that you have, what would you say is your top three from that list, if you have a top three?
Of how to be more, you were going in and out a little bit. So you're saying of how to be more productive,
Yeah, how to be more
right?
productive in your daily life. So how can people become more productive, or what are three tips or three ways that people can
Right.
become more productive in their daily life?
Right. So one is, I think probably the most important is identify what you actually want to be productive in.
Mm,
So I think we run around trying to be as efficient as possible, but efficiency is not the same as productivity. And we're constantly getting stuff done, but we're ending our days saying, I got a lot of stuff done. I was busy all day, but I didn't accomplish my most important work. So I think the first most important thing to consider is, what do I care enough about to be productive in?
mm,
What is important enough to me to say I want to devote some time and energy? And, as Warren Buffett says, look at your top 10 priorities and then focus on the first two and let
mm,
go of the other eight, right? So it's really about being ruthless in deciding not just what you're going to focus on. This would be my second tip, is what you're not going to focus on, what you're going to let go of. So first, identify what it is you care enough to be productive about. And second of all, really look at, like, what can I give up? Like, what can I let go of? What is not in the category of those top few priorities? And I'm going to really let those go. And to be productive in what you care about requires that you be unproductive in a whole lot of other stuff,
mm.
right? So don't define yourself as an incredibly productive person. Just think about what I care about, and I'm going to actually focus on those things, and I'm going to not do a lot of stuff. Someone said to me once that to really be productive, you have to be comfortable with chaos, right? You have to be comfortable with letting a lot of things go undone in order to get your most important stuff done. So, so I think, if tip one is decide what you want to be productive about, and tip two is, let go of everything else. Tip three is use a process that that is reliable, that works every time, and that keeps you focused on what you care about and allows you to be unfocused on what you don't care about. And why I say process is because if you're just relying on willpower, it's not going to work. So,
Mhm.
in my book, 18 Minutes, I talk about an 18-minute process. I think it's a pretty good process. But, whatever process you use, I don't really care, but use a process reliably so that you're not relying on your feelings in the moment about what you want to work on or whether you want to, follow through on something, because we can't totally trust our feelings in the moment. We do a lot from a human nature perspective to avoid hard work. And I think, I don't mean busy work. I mean hard work, the work that requires that we don't know a lot and we think about things. It's hard stuff. We'd rather, check things off of an easy to-do list. So, I would say you follow some process that works for you, that allows you to stay focused on the things that are most important and let go of the things that aren't.
Wow, that's amazing. It's I once heard this saying that you can do anything you want, but not everything. So I guess
Yeah, right.
it's kind of
Yeah,
like the
that's a
same
great
thing.
saying. That's a great saying. I love it.
Yeah, it's yeah, for myself, I've read that exactly what you said in other books on productivity as well. They all say you gotta really focus on what it is that you want to be productive in. So you really have to choose wisely.
Right. Right. I 100% I agree.
Yeah. Okay. And so in your book, you talk about in your book 4 seconds, you talk about how taking a 4 second breather at times can save you from disaster. I love how you opened up the book about I think it was an argument with your wife about I can't remember specifically, but
I was late.
yes, yes, that's right. You were late for dinner, and you kind of held her up for a little bit, and then when you arrived, you said, "Oh, I was so busy. I'm sorry," and then that uh, kind of snowballed into a mess. Uh, so for someone, and your advice for the 4 seconds is to just stop for 4 seconds, take a somewhat of a breather before, I guess, escalating a conversation that might just kind of uh, go get even worse. Now, for someone who I guess is somewhat hot tempered or has difficulty just kind of controlling their emotions, how would you recommend using that 4 seconds to them? I mean, it's great advice, but to actually for someone who's hot tempered to actually put it into place, what would you say to a person like that?
I think it's the most important for the person who's hot tempered, right? I mean, that's the person for whom it is most useful. And what I would say is actually practice it. Let's practice it right now. Ready? Sit up straight
Okay.
and take a deep breath. Do you feel a tiny bit better than you did 4 seconds ago?
I did, yeah,
I,
surprisingly.
I do too. It's like an amazing thing. And everybody listening, do the same thing. Just take a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, focus on the exhale and allow your body to relax for just literally 4 seconds. Let's do it again. So my suggestion for the person who's hot tempered is do it when you're not hot tempered, right?
Mm.
Do it when it's easy to do it. Do it if you're hot tempered and you're listening to this, do it now. Do it in another couple of minutes. Do it once the podcast ends. And get some experience when it's easy doing it when you're not in the heat of the moment, because you are 100% right. It is much harder in the heat of the moment to do this kind of thing. But if you've practiced it enough, then in the heat of the moment, you're going to have some body memory and you're going to remember. If you wait to breathe deeply until you're in the heat of the moment, you've probably missed the boat. But that's okay also, because you could look back and you can say, oh, I should have breathed there. And then maybe in that moment, take a breath. I often have my watch beep every hour, and every hour I take a deep breath. And I ask myself two questions. This is part of the 18 minutes process. I ask
Mhm.
myself two questions. Am I doing what I most need to be doing right now? And am I being who I most want to be? So every day I've got at least 8 moments during a day when I could take a deep breath and I can ask myself those questions. And so in the heat of the moment, I'm pretty practiced at taking a deep breath and asking myself, how do I want to show up right now?
Mm.
And, it's like any martial art, and it's a martial art, any martial art. Like you have to do it enough so that it comes naturally in the heat of the moment.
Mm. No, that's great advice. It's do what's difficult when it's easy.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I love it. And yeah, for yourself, did it take long for you for it to become, I guess, instinctual or become a habit?
Not that long, and that doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that I don't mess up. It doesn't mean that I don't, lose my temper and then think afterwards, oh, I should have done. I'm far from perfect. I am not a guru on up high who, like shares my great wisdom and then goes back up to my heavenly perch and, and lives my perfect life. I'm messy. I make mistakes. My books it's all over that. And in fact, I had someone who I know quite well, who I've met because she's a reader of my material, and she said, it doesn't do you any favors when you admit all of your, like how, you're trying to teach us, here are the things that work, and then you tell us about the times that it doesn't work for you, and you have a hard time with it, and you lose credibility when you do that. And I sort of, agree to disagree on it, which is I think life is hard, and I think it's hard to do all this stuff perfectly. And I think it's important for people to realize here's a good process and this works, and you're much better off if you take a deep breath. And it's hard, and sometimes you won't. And sometimes you'll be in the heat of the moment and you'll think I should breathe right now, but I'm having so much fun being angry. I don't want to tone it down, right? Because we actually enjoy anger. Anger feels powerful. And so you might say, like, in this moment, I don't feel like being nice, I don't feel like being thoughtful and intentional and strategic. I feel like yelling, and I'm going to do it. And screw Peter. And like, I think that's okay too, right? And you just look back on it afterwards and you say, was that the right decision? Maybe it was. I don't know. It's your life, right? Or maybe it wasn't. And then you decide to do something differently next time, and you start to build your capacity to act in a way that represents how you want to show up in the world.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great practical advice, and very I love how you just say, if it works for you, then it works for you. If it doesn't, reflect on it, and hopefully in the future it'll be better. Oh, oh, sorry.
I was losing you a little bit, but I have you now.
Okay, great. So you've been a consultant for quite some time now, and what's I guess a success story that you've had on an individual or a company or just anyone, any success stories?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we have a lot of success stories,
Yeah.
and the way we work organizationally, it's always about having an impact on an individual for the sake of having an impact on the organization. So
Mm.
the question that we always ask at first is, what's the outcome we're trying to achieve? There's a company where I was working with the CEO where the stock price went from $19 to $107.50. And you look at that and you go, what did we do differently? And it had to do with how he showed up as a leader
Mm.
and how we built a team that also showed up as leaders in order to achieve that. Another company where they were losing a couple of $100 million, and within a couple of years, within 3 or 4 years, they were making $400 million.
Wow.
And I should check those numbers because it's somewhere around there. I don't know if those are the exact numbers. But what happened there is that the CEO, I was working with the CEO, and the CEO was able to shift certain things about how he was leading. We were able to build a team that worked more effectively together, so that they were able to, even, and this was when it was a financial services firm, and when there was a lot of withdrawals of assets from actively managed funds, and they started to do really well when a lot of their competitors were doing less well. So there's a huge positive impact on how leaders show up, and specifically how they create an organizational environment so that the people reporting to them show up in the way that they need to. It's one thing for a leader to change his or her behavior, but it's another to say, how do I get the people around me to change their behavior? And that's, like, I think we've cracked the code on that. And I think we have a pretty good, I talked earlier about a reliable process, right? We have a reliable process that helps people get massive traction on what's most important to them. So everything we do that you read about in the books around individuals, we do the same thing for organizations. And so for me, the things that make me happiest is when I see, a person change in a way that shifts the way their organization operates and the kinds of results they're getting as an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine just um, eh, seeing that you've be able to change someone or impact someone, and then that causes a ripple effect on how it changes the lives of others.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really
Um,
fun.
yeah, and so as we're just kind of finishing up, you said that you're writing another book. And
Mhm.
sorry, what was the name of the book again?
The working title at this point is Emotional Courage.
Okay,
And
emotional
the
courage.
subtitle is, if you are willing to feel everything, then you can do anything. And the idea is that, we stop ourselves not because we don't know what to do. Think for yourself, think of a hard conversation that you're not having, right? A hard conversation that you should have, but you're not having,
Hmm.
right? And I would bet that you know what you want to say, that you know who you want to say it to, that there are plenty of opportunities to actually say it, that none of those are the issues. So what's the issue? Why haven't you had the conversation? And I would argue that you haven't had the conversation because there's something you don't want to feel. You might not want to feel their rejection. You might not want to feel disconnected from them. You might not want to feel their anger. You might not want to feel your own shame or embarrassment. There's a bunch of things you might not want to feel. And so because you don't want to feel those things, you don't follow through on something that's important to you. And if you are willing to feel it all, anger, shame, and rejection, and joy, and anything. If you're willing to feel everything, then you could pretty much just do anything. And that's what it's about.
Wow. And when's the release date on that?
Currently, it's July 22nd, I believe.
Okay, that's
Now, those things always might change a little bit, but for now, it's July 22nd.
awesome. I look forward to reading that book. I read your first two. I'll have to check out your first one, and then I'll have to check out your upcoming book that comes out
Great.
next year. And lastly, where can people find or connect with you?
The best way is to go to peterbregman.com. Peter, Bregman. Peterbregman.com.
Okay, great. So for the audience, I'll be sure to leave a link down below where you can connect with Peter, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact him. but
Thank you.
but yes, I guess that would be it for today. But we would before we sign off, I would first like to say thank you so much again for being here on this to have this interview.
It's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. You're a great interviewer, and I like your questions, so thank you.
Oh, well, thanks. That's I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, Peter.
My pleasure.